Sure, you can add a co-op element into that, but you have to make the core aspect of the game design needs to be solid for like a single player experience. Then add the co-op on top of that. I think that's the biggest point I can make in this video. Okay, so just recently, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy just came out, and for the most part, it has been overwhelmingly positive reception with the gaming industry and the fan bases of every party involved in making the game happen. So there was this I guess is an annual report that happened with Square Enix, and yes, this is the Avengers. This is not the Guardians of the Galaxy. I get it, but we're so there was a news article that came out. So the news of it was as followed of this little tidbit right here. So Square Enix has released its annual report for its 21 fiscal year, which reflected on the game's release during the initial months of the COVID pandemic. Marvel's Avengers is revealed in the report to be considered not proven successful, which for a lot of Japanese companies, it is really hard to, make sure that everything is fully successful to their standards. There's one part of being successful, but then there is the Japanese standards, which is you have to really outsell yourself on your projected earnings to really be like considered it's very successful. So though lessons were learned from the project taken on, which is great, taking on the game as a service or a gas model. Avengers was described as an ambitious title for Square Enix. The complications that came with playing for the long tail of a service per focused title with a shift to developers working from home compounded the challenges. We were able to surmount these challenges and release the game. So there's a huge thing right there of the game as a service model, which you've probably heard that term many times over again. So game as a service is way different than what the Guardians of the Galaxy game was. Guardians of the Galaxy, which we'll get into that. We'll get into that. Let's just read through a little bit more of this. We were able to surmount these challenges to release the game, but is unfortunately not proven as successful as we would have liked, and that's because most people are. Well, there's multiple reasons why it's not as successful as they would like. This thing was on any kind of a sale, or because after the demo that happened and everything, then people would have absolutely been looking for a sale and whatnot. Because in all honesty, on the PC, Avengers was not a good release. It was a pretty rough state of a release on the PC. That being said, a lot of people did play on PC that were streamers, and that made the game not look as great either. And then you put that on top of word of mouth getting around that the game was very kind of average on the gameplay, but that is expected as a game as a service title. Again, we're going to get into that. But though there's a silver lining according to Matsuda and takes the project as a learning opportunity, he says nonetheless, taking on the game as a service model highlight issues that we were likely to face in the future game development efforts, such as needed select game designs that mesh with unique attributes and tastes of our studios and development teams. That's a very big red flag right there, that if they are looking to do more games as a service in the future, oh no. As a result of finding out, especially if they have the Marvel license still, as a result of finding out certain lessons games service hard way, Matsuda says, while the new challenges that we tackled with this title produce a disappointing outcome, we are certain that game as service approach will grow in importance as game becomes more service oriented. No. We need to get away from games as a service. Very seldom does games as a service work. Again, we'll get into this. Avengers wasn't the only game from Square Enix that had a rough time during the early days of, in reference to Final Fantasy VII Remake. At one point, even whether the release would be possible is thrown into question. While COVID is mentioned directly before this, it could be reference to the troubled development the game faced in its infancy regardless. 7 Remake was released in April 21 and turned out just fine. Yeah, I don't know why they're going after Final Fantasy, because Final Fantasy had like 4 different development cycles, and like FF7 Remake was in development for like 10 years. So I don't know why they're going after FF7 remake right there. That's kind of weird. It'll be intriguing to see which part of Marvel's Avengers are cherry picked and approved upon for future games. The game is so received support from Square Enix with the release of Black Panther, the Wakanda for Wakanda expansion, and continued tweaks to its XP system, which they are really not learning anything because there was a just recently the XP system had a tweak, and there was a lot of people that didn't like it because there was basically a pay to win aspect that got added to the storefronts. I was just seeing that on Twitter, and yeah, you should be able to earn. The only thing that should be paid DLC in gaming, for what I say, is cosmetics. Anything that is game related that is like, okay, you earn XP like this, and this, it should be in game only that you can earn that XP. If you want to get microtransaction coins or whatever you want to call it, any way of buying microtransaction DLC, that should also have a way of earning it in game, so you don't have to spend real world cash. You can add the real world cash aspect to buying, the virtual currency. I'm telling you, you're not going to lose any business that way, because we have seen time and time again where as long as if you can earn it in game little bit by little bit, people will play the hell out of the game. Hell, I do that to earn that in game currency. Maybe throw a couple dollars in there every once in a while to where you're still earning cash that way. But then the people that don't want to spend a fortune on it, yeah, okay, so. Well, anyways, so I'm sorry. There's like 10 different points in my head that I'm trying to like get to in this video. Microtransaction stuff is a very easy way of doing it the right way, and there's actually a certain title that I think does it very, very good. And I know everybody's gonna hate me for saying this because it's like, but Fortnite actually does it the right way. And there's a reason why it's so popular on that aspect, because you can get V-Bucks very easily in Fortnite by doing, like, if you do like 2 seasons of the season pass for free, you can get the 3rd season pass for free. That's actually really cool. And I would love to see more and more games. There is certain other games that do it, like Rainbow Six Siege does a great job at it too, where everything in that game you can pretty much earn for free just by playing the game. I bring up those 2 examples of stuff because I see that those 2 games doing it really, really cool. That's a very cool model of being able to play the game, earn everything in the game. If it takes you forever to do it, that's whatever. You're getting more game time out of that title. So therefore, your money's stretching farther with that $60 that you threw into it. Fortnite is for free. That's the reason why I bring up Fortnite, because it's a free-to-play title. Warzone you can kind of do it with, but it takes you so long to try and get any of the free COD points in there. That's why I bring up Fortnite more than like a Warzone, because it takes you so less time to get everything done in Fortnite. You can just kind of just breeze through it, and you get a ton of V-Bucks through that. But on the flip side, it's a great example because they make a ton of money off of V-Bucks. People still are buying all the character packs and skin packs and all that stuff, which I don't, it's like, man, it's just overpriced for my taste. But it is a great model if it's done the right way. So another huge factor in this too of why Avengers is not selling too well, you can now play the game through Game Pass. And I think maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was PlayStation Now. Yes, it was. It was PlayStation Now. So them having the game on subscription services, and this is the double-edged sword. Subscription services are great. But, and the huge but in this, people don't buy the game. I don't have a reason to buy. There's nothing in this. Even if they put a Spider-Man thing in there, I would just wait for it to go on Game Pass or something, or go, and just get the expansion pack that way. You can play this game for very cheap and not have to buy the full thing. So that's where the whole subscription-based stuff that Game Pass has been promoting, and also PlayStation Now, like PlayStation Now, Game Pass, Nintendo's online stuff, all of these subscription deals or these subscription passes. They promote not having to buy stuff and just paying a very low minimum. Now, if you are a company like a Japanese company that is like, okay, we need to sell a ton of copies of this game to really be able to say it was successful and greenlight a next project, the subscription model is not going to do anything for that. You are not making sales. You are making subscription sales, you know? So some of this stuff though is okay. So games as a service. Now, the huge lesson that needs to be learned: Avengers versus Guardians of the Galaxy. And I know there's a ton of people that are going, well, Avengers versus Guardians of the Galaxy, why did one do so well and the other one failed and this and that? It's because it's two different game designs. It is two very different game designs in this. One game is 100%, and let me actually bring up some examples to show the class here. Okay, so first up, we'll go into, I won't have any game volume on because I'm going to be talking over this whole thing. But first up, we'll go into, this is the reveal of the Avengers game. So this right here, the way that they revealed it, and I heard some stuff that Square was blaming Crystal Dynamics and all that. And in all honesty, it is Crystal Dynamics' fault for the way that they wanted to make the project happen, always online games as a service. But it's also Square's fault for, they are the publisher, they signed off on the game happening to begin with. So if you're looking at this, it looks like it's going to be mostly like a solo single player game. And on this trailer, I was hyped up and excited. I was like, cool, this looks awesome. You can play it, you know, you can pick your Avenger, you can actually jump in, you can do the whole thing. Yeah, you're going to have like scenes from the movie play out in this, and some really crazy moments that are not in the movies is going to happen that is maybe more comic book related. All right, and then we see just snippets of gameplay in there and whatnot. So that's the first reveal. Then we have the official story. The official story trailer, which is, okay, so now we're starting to see a little bit more of the gameplay. We're starting to see, okay, so this is what the actual in-game graphics, not just any CG rendered, because there's a very big difference between CG rendered and in-game graphics. CG is something that is performed on a computer, is not in the game engine. Then you have in-game engine CG, which is in-game engine. It's what the game will look like, but it's scripted events. Then you have gameplay. Gameplay is just gameplay. It is, you know, it's like, this is scripted events. This is basically in-game CG. A lot of the stuff of what you're seeing right here is in-game CG. Once again, cutscene. That's scripted. But there is some gameplay elements in here where the camera is hovering up. That is in game. That is what you can stand there and do the same thing with your camera by shifting the camera up. It's just, you know, it's machinima basically. So again, it's still very like a lot of characters talking to one another and everything, but you're still not really seeing gameplay. And this is where, by this trailer here, I was like, okay, I know that it's supposed to be always online, and this is where I started getting really like, ooh, I don't know about this, because always online, that means that there's probably going to be either microtransaction heavy, which it kind of was, or it's going to be made for co-op. And when it's made for co-op, that's when you end up getting a lot of bad blood with the community, because a co-op design. So for this, a co-op design is going to mean that you have to make missions structured around an always online environment. You can't do a ton of like scripted in-game cinematic cutscene moments where things are blowing up and you're falling down, sliding down, and everything. You can't do a lot of stuff. You have to keep it where there's like there's only a handful of types of enemies that you can do, because it has to be able to run on every single system that has an internet connection, which is all of them nowadays. You have to also make sure that you can play this well with multiple people in it. I'm gonna actually replay this one more time. You have to make sure that every single character, it has animations that it controls well. There's no bugs in the gameplay itself on it. And then you have to have a story that can follow pretty much a 4-player co-op experience. So everything in this has to be based around the always online 4-player co-op and kind of a microtransaction situation, because the reason why there's so many microtransactions in games of a service is because they are trying to make up for the fact that you can't do like the Guardians thing where you're running around so many different environments and everything. You can only have so many different environments also because the game is limited on what you can do, because always online. Online impacts everything. because it is a tremendous amount of workload on the game engine itself to add online into this whole thing. Like, you have all these enemies on the screen and everything. Well, if you're playing 4 players, every console and the servers have to track where all those player locations are and where each player is and what they are doing, all their super abilities, everything that's going on has to look the exact same on every single screen. If not, then you'll have like the Anthem thing happen, where you have a boss fight on one person's screen and boss fight doesn't show up on another person's screen because the game is not loading the boss. It's not, the game engine is not talking to the server the right way, so you can't load the boss the correct way. So then if you go over to, let's see, so like the reveal trailer for Guardians of the Galaxy, again, a lot of time reveal trailers are I think this was CG. No, this was in game. Okay. So Avengers, this is a full-on solo single player experience with, a lot of, and everybody's asking, well, this is dumb. You can't you can't use every single one of the Guardians. There's a major reason for it. If you are just playing a Star-Lord, then all the development goes into making sure Star-Lord plays the right way, is good. They can make him feel really solid to play. And then the focus goes into, okay, make sure that AI doesn't wig out. Guardians isn't perfect. I've seen a lot of people having some troubles with it. My first playthrough, no problem. I've been running back through it to try and platinum the game out, and I've had some glitches start showing up here and there after a couple of the patches. It happens. It's game design. Games are, it's voodoo magic how games are made. Everything's an optical illusion. But you cannot have moments. A lot of these moments that you're seeing right here. How could you do this if you have 4 players that is trying to map to all 4 players and running on the screen at the same time? A lot of this, though, is also in-game scripted moments, and now we go over to gameplay. So this is the reveal trailer. As you can tell, they're way farther into development of like actually getting the game working, because you only have to focus on one character that you're controlling, not 4 or 5 of them. Also, this doesn't have online built in, so you don't have to worry about the whole always online microtransaction DLC aspect of it. You can just focus on putting outfits in the game and doing all that. You can never, and you hear this all the time, that developers say this over and over again, you can never field test until you launch the game, and all the server problems that can act up because it's always online and the servers have to do, everybody's systems is different. A PS4 Slim versus a PS5 is a very different system. A Xbox One versus a Series X, very different systems. So until you get millions of players around the world are jumping in on those servers and everything and seeing what's going to go wrong with it. Again, even something like Guardians, you can have a bunch of stuff go wrong with it on the PC side of things because, again, everybody's PC is different. Again, it's gaming. It's hard. It's a very hard industry to make everything work right. But if you are doing something like Guardians, it is very different from, say, an Anthem or a Division or a Ghost Recon game, what's the other big ones, like a Warframe, any of those games that are always online. Again, because you don't have the online aspect. The online throws stuff off. Now, would I have loved to see like a built-in co-op game or a built-in co-op feature, in this game? Sure. It would have been cool, but I'm so afraid that it would have messed up the dynamic of you being able to use all the other characters on screen and assists. That would be my biggest fear of it, is that no matter which way you go about it, if you add any kind of multiplayer into the game, it makes the game design different. Also, Mass Effect. Mass Effect would be a great example in this too. Of Mass Effect, this game is very much like Mass Effect in the fact that you are using your squad mates as assist characters. Now, the online portion of Mass Effect was very different from the single player, and it's just like one more example of like why they have to design games differently. Because then you have all these characters running around, and did you notice that in something like a Mass Effect's multiplayer, which a lot of people love, I would have rather seen story-based DLC for it, but in the multiplayer, you only had a handful of enemies and not much, scripted moments happening, not much cinematic moments happening. again, it just comes down to game design. So basically, what I'm saying is anything that has an always online element or massive multiplayer engagement in the storyline, be expecting that game to run very, average, where it's like only a handful of enemies, not so many scripted events and everything. You should just be expecting that because that's the way they have to design the game to keep up with the hardware. Another kind of example too to look out for when watching trailers, especially because we got the Game Awards coming up. I would say this is kind of like a side note being thrown in there. Like Saints Row, we just saw an alpha for Saints Row, and Elden Ring. We just seen like two trailers for both of those two, and it's so Elden Ring looks like it's got kind of the cyberpunk thing going on, and not in the way of like it's going to be broken and this and that and the other thing, but it's going to be very dated by the time it comes out. It's been in development for a long time. It's made for the PS4, then Xbox One. It's going to look like one of those games. It's not going to be a PS5, Xbox Series X type of game. Maybe the next one from Software will be. I think Demon Souls probably is going to be have better visuals than the Elden Ring. So then you have something like Saints Row that the alpha gameplay was shown, and it's like, So one more thing to look out for with game trailers. I know this is kind of like getting into like two different Let's Talks in one, but one more thing to look out for is, so this is Saints Row. It comes out in roughly about 4 months, and I think it's going to get pushed back. I really think this is alpha gameplay 4 months out from release. That is a giant just red flag. Oh no, what is going on with this? That means that they're going to have to build the majority of this game in 4 months. I think Saints Row is going to come out busted. I really think Saints Row is going to either get pushed back, that's the best case scenario, or it's going to come out and broken, a mess, and it's going to take them forever to get all the patch updates working properly with this and everything. Because if this is what they got so far, it looks bare minimal all right. They should be doing a lot more with this, though. There should be a lot more here. So again, like, look out for stuff in trailers. If something is alpha and it is 4 months out, a game minimally should be taken at least 2 years. Okay, not 4 months, 2 years. 4 months, you get an Anthem, you get a Cyberpunk, you get that type of a situation happening. 2 years minimum, 4 years. If it's been development, like a good solid development cycle for 4 years, the game's probably going to be really awesome. If it's 2 years, hopefully the development team is using their time very wisely. You can have some great titles come out in a 2 year span. 4 months, this is pretty much what you're going to be getting. The next 3 months is going to be bug testing and fixing on this. If this is pre-alpha, I don't know how they're actually going to get it done in time. So what my estimate is probably Saints Row is going to get pushed back, and we'll have Elden Ring and there was another one that's coming out in February. Dying Light 2 and Elden Ring are probably going to be the two big games for February. Saints Row, I would say, is probably going to get pushed back. You're going to want to hope that it gets pushed back, because I can tell you right now, if this is what it is, there's going to be some bugs and graphical glitches and everything else later on down the road. This is just a very small chunk of what this game looks like. But yeah, that's a little bit of thoughts on all this, like Square Enix, kind of pooping on Crystal Dynamics in a way. I didn't really see anything where they were going after Crystal Dynamics. They were just disappointed in Avengers, which, in all honesty, they did kind of set up Avengers to fail. In all honesty, putting it on so many game subscriptions, if you really want a game to sell really well, don't put it on game subscriptions. Everybody's going to use the bare minimum to get into it. It's just like Battlefield. I bet you EA is going to be really, really angry that Battlefield doesn't sell a ton, because you can do EA Play and get free access into like a trial of it. And for 10 hours, I would say most everyone's probably going to get the fill out of it. I can tell you right now, it's busted and broke, because we've already tried out the beta, and that was busted and broke. As much as they're trying to say it's an old build, no, the game comes out way too soon. That was a demo that we saw of Battlefield 2042, and same way what we're seeing with Saints Row. Elden Ring looks fine going into that, but again, Avengers was just it was just that is the type of game that I think people just don't like always online games. And when games are designed around that philosophy of like, okay, here is a loot shooter that is always online, it doesn't work. The majority of the gaming community does not go for that. They would rather have a single player, very, very well story driven gameplay experience. And if you go online, sure, you can add a co-op element into that. But you have to make the core aspect of the game design needs to be solid for like a single player experience, then add the co-op on top of that. I think that's the biggest point I can make in this video. Make sure that the core aspect of the game design is that of a single player, fully fleshed out AAA big budget campaign game, and then bring in your co-op and tack that in as a feature. Do not make the co-op a product of the thing, unless now there is the games like what was it, A Way Out and It Takes Two, that the whole thing is just co-op based. But the way that the game design is on it is a single player focused game design, just with a co-op mix in on top of it, where yes, you do have to play it co-op, but the core game design itself has so many single player game ideas in it, and the way it's built of like cinematics playing on both sides of the screen. That's the reason why the split screen thing has to be there, because the whole game world is rendering like it's like a single player game, but then you're doing split screen with two different players feedback, but it's only two players. You don't have four of them running around, you only have two. So that's a way easier thing to render than four players running around blowing everything up. On the same thing of like the Dark Pictures anthology, and Until Dawn and all that, it's like you're taking turns with each character when you're. Was it Until Dawn? It was one of the other games. Dark Pictures anthology, anyways, where you're playing co-op through them. You're taking turns, and the game is literally rendering it as the core of it is a good big budget single player game, and then you're just adding the co-op on top of that. So again, that's the way that game should be made. Back in the PS2 era, that's how they were with split screen co-op. If you remember, like a Splinter Cell used to do split screen. Assassin's Creed was another really solid thing of like, if you played Assassin's Creed online, sometimes like, okay, Unity would wig out, sure, but there was other games in the Assassin's Creed lineup that the core aspect of the single player was there, and then they just added a multiplayer on top of it. Again, Mass Effect, it worked really well because core single player, multiplayer on top of that. So and also Dark Souls games and Bloodborne and all that stuff. Again, that's your biggest that if you are a game designer, please make sure your game is like, play it as a single player first, a single player game first, and then add your multiplayer on top of that. Like, that's your best way of going about it. Make sure that the core design feels good, looks good, plays good, then add all the extra stuff. It probably would make development time double unless you have like a giant team, but it's definitely worth it in the long run, because there's going to be a way bigger player base, and you're going to get way more of a buy-in for it. Anyways, this video is going way too long, so thanks for tuning in. Thanks for stopping by. Go check out the rest of the channel. There's a whole bunch of stuff on the channel. Surf around the channel, and also go check out my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Warwolf. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for stopping by. And as always, I will see ya next time.